The Fearless Podcast, in a time of deceit, telling the truth, is a revolutionary act. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Fearless Podcast. This is episode 68, and we got a full house here in the studio.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Episode 68.
Matt's back.
I'm back.
And Faith is in the studio. We're crammed in here.
Yep.
We're trying to fit inside of the camera aperture.
Yeah.
And what I thought we could talk about today is being an historical man in postmodern America.
Sounds like a good discussion.
What do you think, wife?
Sounds good.
Well, she says it sounds good, so we're going to do it.
Yep.
So who wants to start things off?
Well, us boys have been going through every morning. We start out our day with a Bible study and also going through a book, and the book's name is Man of Steel and Velvet. And us brothers have been learning a lot going through it. And also, Mom is in with the Bible study and the book reading. And it's just so awesome, like starting out our day with reading God's word, but then also reading a very practical book speaking on all of these good godly traits that you should strive for in being the ideal man, and I think a lot of the issues that we're dealing with today stem from people not trying their best to be a good, strong man. And even though there's a lot of people out there that, there's a big feminist movement right now that are pushing for, I would say, like, women dominating in everything and not showing both sides, that women are incredibly important and men are incredibly important. And it is absolutely beautiful when they are both in their God-given roles, and it's absolutely disastrous when they're not. And I know a lot of people get their hackles up when they hear that, but it is, and it's very observable, when you see a family trying to, the man's trying to homeschool the children and stay home and be the housewife, and then the wife is trying to be the husband and deal with finances and everything like that. It's a lot of strain on her, and she was not designed to do that. So that book goes through all that type of stuff with, having your wife be able to raise your children and keep the house and have her be in her God-given role, and then you be in your God-given role with being the ideal man, because there's these there's outside warfare every day that God has been able to prepare us men to do. Women were never designed to fight in war, period, end of story. The perfect example is the U.S. military. Everything, even if you are a woman that goes into the military, it's 30% less. They have to, however they would say that, but it's 30% less of a test, for strength and everything. In everything, it's 30% less. And it is very sad. And personally, I think it is it's so wrong on so many levels. So as men, there's you have your spiritual battle, and then you have your physical battles, and God has prepared us for those, and as women, and you can probably talk about that too, touch on that too, because you are a woman. So, he's made them the weaker vessel, even though certain people don't think so, but he has, so we're supposed to, as men, and Dad can talk about it too, because he's a father too, but, to be able to protect them from these outside attacks, and being that watchdog.
the sad thing is when you deconstruct that,
Yeah.
right? And you change the order and you change the gender roles, and the fourth wave feminists fight for their right to party and to fight. The end result is weak women on the front line,
Yep.
or men pretending to be women in positions of authority,
Yeah.
and men pretending to be women knocking genetic women out, and then women complaining about it, and then political backlash. No men in women's sports. This is true postmodern deconstructionism. Is you shift the Overton window to the left, right, and you allocate and you allow for transformerism and all that stuff, and you allow for the transformers to transform, and you have Caitlyn Jenner use the ladies' restroom and all these different things.
Sure.
And you have these Blair White things that are these right-wing whatevers. And that is the fruit of this fourth wave feminist deconstruction. And the end result is a front line of women acting like men at 1/3 of the physical capacity.
Yeah.
1/3 of the emotional capacity. And the end result of why we ultimately would have to then introduce androids into fighting, because it's not even a thing that's even a possibility. And this is how society is deconstructed. And how you fix that is you return to a historical position. You return to ancient man, and I don't say ancient in a evolutionary, in an evolutionary aspect. I'm talking about ancient as far as like in the beginning, God created, man and woman, and a return to the original created order, because the rebellion of that order is a rebellion of God himself.
Yeah.
And it is a sign that you hate God. And this is the talking point. I had David Knight on last week, and he said politics is downstream from culture.
Yeah.
Culture is downstream of the way you view God. So if we can coordinate and reconcile where we are in relation to God and where he is. Now, if God is the creator, and God created men and women, and he created them in an order, and he put everything in order. And when we recognize that order, we recognize him as creator. We recognize that the lesser is servant to the greater, and the greater, that created order, directly and indirectly created rules, right? We're all going to give an account to our creator, and he expects, as his image bearer, he expects certain things from us. And how interesting is that this God creator, man, masculine God, the Father, created man and woman, and designed both of them to honor, worship, and glorify him in very different roles. And he created them in that capacity for that reason. And then even throughout the course of history and time, with the way that he begot his son through the Holy Spirit, through Mary. And it's just this beautiful picture of men doing what men are supposed to do, women doing what women are supposed to do. And through that process and that created order, God bring redemption. I mean, what if Mary wanted to actualize and realize her full potential? And if she wasn't so throttled by society in just this beggarly, meagerly, motherly role.
In the name of women's empowerment, it's actually women's enslavement. You know, it's really what it is. And at the same time, it's the castration of us men too, as, you know, just with everything, you know, with the female boss and everything like that. And it's really, really tricky for a man to be a man when you have some type of boss lady over top of you. And yeah, it's just not a good order. And I was talking to a young lady, and it's with trying to find a spouse or a husband nowadays, it's very tricky. And she was saying, you know, where are all the young men at, you know? And it's very interesting to see it from both sides, you know, me as a young man, and then from her as a young lady, looking at it through, you know, as being a Christian as well, which makes it, you know, not a, what is it called now? Is it called a cultural Christian?
Culture. Oh, you're like Elon Musk and Richard Dawkins, and you're a cultural
That's what
Christian?
It was. I forgot, but yeah, that's what it's called. So nowadays they have this new speak, and it's called a cultural Christian, aka you're just a normal pagan, but you just, you know, you can now identify as a Christian,
or you're a Republican. You know what? They used to be Democrats, like all the Democrats, like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Robert Kennedy Jr. Are now all Republicans. And the story is that they are all shifting right. But the reality is that the entire Republican Party just shifted left.
Wow.
What if the coup? What if the coup wasn't Kamala and the Democrats and Sleepy Joe? What if the coup was the Democrats were just overtly hijacking the Republican Party?
Yeah.
Okay, I digress.
What are some of your thoughts on it?
I mean, I know that a nation will only rise to the level of its women. And I think as women, we have a lot of power and control over society, the future of society. We are the ones who still birth the babies, raise and rear and nurture the children. If you're not turning them over to a government school to raise them, then you are responsible in raising them. And in that responsibility, you set the tone. And in going back to traditional womanhood and studying and just really trying to raise the bar, raise the level, push ourselves in a culture that has robbed us of our femininity, redefined what is a woman, redefined what is feminine, what is modest, what's immodest. I mean, they've just really robbed girls for generations now of any type of femininity. And if you go back and you start to really study it as a student of history, and you really challenge yourself and dive deep into it, the level that we live our lives as ladies in our femininity will push our men to a higher level in their masculinity. So it's all a balancing act. And it's challenging for us in a modern culture to live out a traditional and very conservative and like historically appropriate, biblically appropriate gender role these days, I would say. But if you make yourself a student of that and you do that and pursue it, you will see the men around you flourish in their masculinity. And it does take effort. And it's why we're studying some of these older books to kind of really dive deep into these things, because they're really important and they're really simplistic in the way that society was. It worked. And it worked really, really well, I think. I mean, even to the more recent history of like the World War I generation, right? They say it's the greatest generation that ever lived, right? And why? Why were those people so great in their overall? Obviously, we're speaking in generalities here, but why do we still have these people around, these generations of people around that have morals and a compass, and they have discretion, and they have grace, and they're compassionate? Why do we see these pillars still in our community? They're aging out, but it's our time to, to pick up the bar and just to, I guess, pick up the torch, I want to say, and just start to, let's go back. Okay. Let's hit the reset and go back. And that's what we're, I feel like that's biblical, to do, is to repent, consider our ways, turn back, to reset. That's a biblical principle, I feel like. So yeah, I don't know if you want to get into some of the things in the book that we were studying out, or not.
Yeah, you could just go through.
Yeah, we can. And I mean, what's interesting in the book,
or whatever, whatever you want to do,
is it's antithetical to the agenda of the Age of Aquarius and the Theosophists and Helena Blavatsky and this transgender gender blender social experiment that we have been foisted into since segregation, suffrage, abolitionist movement, and even the temperance movement. These were all movements of largely women. These were veiled religious Unitarian ecumenical movements that hijacked Christianity in a larger way, and also hijacked most churches theologically, that permitted this shift of man and woman and God's created order into this complementarian, egalitarian, gender blending, gender affirming blob that we have today. And when you talk, that's how come top masculinity is toxic now. You know, because if you're a man and you know it, and you have the desire to lead and to defend and to protect, that's toxic, because, girl power and whatever. But
and I was listening to Jordan Peterson. He was having a very excellent conversation with a lady. I forget which one it was, but she was talking about, ever since the abortion pill and everything like that came out, and so many people, do all that type of stuff, and what that does to the female body. It's quite incredible, from just like a hormonal level and everything like that. And they were doing these studies, he was saying, and to put it like very simply, was that, when they would be on these medications, these, what are they specifically called? Those, abortion.
The day after pill.
The abortion
pills.
Yep. And when women were on these pills, they were more attracted by like some like a
birth control.
Yeah,
Control.
Thank you. Birth control. Like by a certain percentage, it was a large percentage. They were more attracted to less masculine men. And it was very interesting. And it was a very interesting podcast. And just the percentage of women that were more attracted to less masculine men when they were on birth control.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, another study just came out that the reproductive rates of Americans just hit an all-time low.
What is it?
It's I don't know.
Because I know it was at like 1.8 or 9 a year or so ago.
Yeah, it is
super.
It's staggering. And we are
it's
collapsing,
terrible.
Cascading society.
Yeah.
And this is the fruit of when you deny God.
Yeah.
It's one thing that to verbally say I hate God or I blaspheme God. But it's the exact same thing to do it in your actions and in your deeds.
Sure.
And in the exact same way that these people pierce themselves through and, put gauges in their nose and in their ear and they inkify themselves.
Tattoos.
We were talking about that today in church.
Yeah.
And now there's this new Christianity where that's all cool.
Yeah.
And culturally correct.
Yep.
And, they worship God with their ink and all these different things.
Hey, look, man, the Native Americans, okay, they were Christians too. They were Christians too.
They worshiped the great creator.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So
yeah, it's an ecumenical movement.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So did you want to just
yeah, you could just go through there. Because there's you got two different sides of the ideal man. And you have, of course, the steel side and the velvet side. And you need both sides. You can't have all steel and you can't have all velvet. So
we see that in God himself as God the Father, the creator, and the warrior God, but we also see the loving God that nourishes his children and he cares for them and the provider. So we see all these same attributes in God that we as God's image bearers created in his image as a man, we should want to emulate that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for on the steel side, we got guide, and then you're a protector and provider. And then right on. So that's number one. And then number one for the velvet side is understands women. And then you got number two, builder of society. Number two for on your velvet side is gentleness. And then you got number three for your steel side is masculinity. And then number three on the velvet side is attentiveness. And then number four, character on your velvet side would be youthfulness. Steel side for number five would be confidence. Then you got humility, health, and then refinement, and it's all really good things to ponder and think about, because, what I was listening to Nick Freitas, and he has a lot of good, great podcasts, great talks, him and his wife, and there's a couple other young men on there, and they're in their 30s and, not married, still single, and they're bachelors, and, they're trying, I guess, their best to, find a good Christian young lady and everything like that. And Nick always talks about all the time of being the person you want to marry, so there's a lot I do hear younger people and they'll be doing whatever, doing the normal worldly stuff or whatever at they're Christians, but they're, doing all the worldly normal stuff. and they'll be like, oh man, I hope I can find a good godly husband or wife. But I'm like, yeah, but if you're being rebellious, you're only going to attract other rebellious people. So that's, you're never going to find somebody that's going to have good attributes if you want to be rebellious and, get tattoos and get piercings all over your body and grow your hair out long. It is a shame for a man to have long hair. How long is long? Long is long, and a hair like a woman, and, y'all saw it. I didn't see it, but the drugs, sex, and rock and roll, that was around like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. I saw that from the crib.
Yeah.
I was born in 75. So.
Yeah. But but now we're really seeing the ramifications of all of that now, and just,
It started with men with long hair.
Yeah.
It finished with women with short hair.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. That's how it goes full circle.
I know.
It starts out as rebellion.
This is for any men out there, and I use that word very lightly, with long hair and the mullet craze and everything. And then people move from a mullet to just having long hair. It's really weird. And then the man bun and everything. Nowadays, with all of the transformer stuff, if you get my gist, I would not want to be confused with that and like the hippie freedom crowd, because that is no longer a thing, because there's no such thing as, I don't know. It's just every guy that I've ever met with long hair, except for maybe a couple, they have, or especially young guys, it's just rebellion, in them. And I don't understand it, especially down here in Texas heat. It's so hot and so sweaty, and you're greasy, and it's disgusting.
It's worth it.
They need a mother. That's really what they need. They actually need a mother to tell them that they look disgusting, and also a father to tell them that they look atrocious too. But they don't. So
much, Matt.
Yeah. That's at
Well, I think it's just being consistent with, if you say that you are a Christian and you profess to be conservative minded in whatever that means to you, whether it's socially or politically or spiritually or whatever, you say you're this conservative, Christian person, but then the outside doesn't line up with the inside.
Exactly.
You're putting on a really confusing, I don't know, persona for everybody to figure out, because it's better if you are consistent in how you present yourself to the world, to your family, to your friends. It comes with a higher level of respect because people see integrity. They see that, oh yeah, he's a hippie. He doesn't believe in God. He, whatever, he dresses like a hippie, right? So it's all consistent. Everything goes together. But if you say you are, a different way, you just have to be a person with integrity. You have to be consistent all the way through. And it gives you respect for whatever the crowd, whatever your friends, family, whatever group you have, you're going to have more respect, or not peer group, just in society in general. People are going to respect you more if you are consistent with who you say you are. And, it is challenging. It does require effort, but I always say I have a high level of respect for, these different men that are in our community, and they come over, drop by sometimes, neighbors, and they have a nice plaid button up shirt. They have a belt. They have a pair of pants on. Their hair's cut. They look like a respectable man. And, I have a high level of respect.
If you want a high value woman as a young man, you're going to need to be a high man. And I know a lot of women get mad at me because I'm straight and to the point. But here's the thing, and men too. But here's the thing. What is on the inside will always come out on the outside. And God doesn't just look on the inside. He also looks for the fruit, which comes out on the outside too, and yeah.
Well, speaking of integrity, the only way as a human that you can have any type of peace is to live an integrated life. Your spiritual self and your physical self have to be at one. And this isn't some mystical terminology, but what's in the well comes up in the bucket.
Yeah.
And your intention and what's inside has to match your outside. Your talks and your walk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talks. And if your walk and your talk are antithetical to one another, that is chaos.
Yeah.
And you can never have peace. You will never have peace if you are living in blatant, overt hypocrisy to say, well, I believe God, I believe the Bible, but if you live contrary to it, or if you just look for a postmodern version that works, maybe you want to be androgynous, so you just get a androgynous Bible for the sake of not offending women.
Yeah,
it'll be all they, them, and those, and it changes all the pronouns, and the next thing you know, we have a problem with pronouns. Because it was so that the textual critics were so concerned about excluding the women folk that we couldn't just rationally look at it and understand man as mankind, and could clearly see that women weren't being excluded. But what did we do? We changed all the words to be inclusive. And by being inclusive, it's androgynous and it's postmodern.
And we wanted to make this podcast today just to talk about this, because this is a really serious thing. And you might think like we're coming kind of hot and heavy on it, but I think we kind of have to, because time is definitely running out, and the country's going downhill super, super fast. And even if one person listens to this podcast and gets something from it and takes something away and actually will change something in his or her life, it is totally worth it just to make this one video, because what really, kind of ticks me off a little bit is, I'll have I'll know these young conservative, quote unquote, Christian men, and for some weird reason, their parents think it's totally fine for them to be like, I guess, a young adult teenager. And in these young adult teenager years, they can do whatever the heck they want and be rebellious. And then, come around 30 years old, then like reality hits, and then they get back onto kind of a little bit more of the straight and narrow. And then they have some kids, and then the process they'll do the same thing with their kids. And I'm like, what in the world, and then they have to bear all of the scars of, all of the crap that they went through, that their parents could have very easily told them, oh, son, don't do that because I did that when I was your age, and you shouldn't do that because this, that, and the other. Here's the scars that I have from doing that. Or, my mom can tell me, and my mom and dad have saved me from a lot of grief and heartache. So when I see other young men doing the things that I absolutely want no part of, it just aches me to like no end to see it, because I know the end of it, and all it is like heartache and a lot of recovery after it, and it's just, so anyway, so this is definitely a very serious podcast. Hopefully it will encourage some people out there also, because there are people out there that do believe like us and do have standards in place and are trying to live for the Lord and do appreciate, dressing right, being a man, being a real man and being a real woman. And, we are talking to y'all. And I know there's going to be people that are going to be like, what about me? We are talking to the bell curve, of course, because there's crazy situations. We understand that. But in all that to say, this is definitely a serious time, and it's definitely a spiritual battle, like every day. And when I just see people every day just take it so loosely and loosey-goosey, it's just like, what in the world? It's like, and there's so much, I don't know. I think people forget because there's so much peace that comes with, and simplicity that comes with. I was talking to a young lady this week, and I was telling her, I'm like, certain things that I believe or whatever, and just pointing it out in scripture and then being like, look how simple this is, look how simple God's word is, and then I've showed this to other, other boys or whatever, other young men, and they'll try to translate it in a different way. But I'm like, well, that's not what God says. Like, let's read the words on the page. Let's not, your truth, my truth. God's truth is the truth. That's the final say, is God's word. And if you have any trouble with it, go talk to him, and yeah, it's just, it's kind of really kind of sparked a fire in me to just do better, as a man, and, be better. And, when much is given, much shall be required. And that's what my dad's, taught me. And he was raised up in a Christian home. And then mom was raised up, as we tease, she was in a pagan home. And, they're both now saved and everything like that. And now blessing us kids with such a great, life. With all that said, I definitely don't want to spoil it and throw it all away and then like run backwards down the hill that we've been climbing to then 20 years from now to start climbing back up it again. It's so silly, and just, yeah, it's just so much peace that comes with it. If you want to.
Yeah. And the thing to remember is judgment is coming. Judgment's coming to America.
Definitely.
Judgment's coming to the world. You can reverse Roe v. Wade and continue to slaughter babies in exponential number. You can even hijack both parties. And now you have the president-elect saying that women's reproductive rights are going to be great under his administration. And now Christians are going to have to wrestle with that when they go to vote their conscience, however that works, for the lesser of two evils. But the point of all that is saying God always has a remnant, and God cares for his people. It doesn't mean that everything's always going to be honky-dory. It's not going to be your best life now.
Bringing in the kingdom, man.
Smiley Joel and all these guys flying in their G5s and whatnot. But God loves and protects his people.
Yeah.
He preserves them. And if you honor and glorify him, he rewards you now and in the future. And we must be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Judgment begins at the house of God. And also, God will not be mocked. And our society and our culture will reap what it has sown exponentially. You always reap more than you sow. And God will not be mocked. And while he will preserve his remnant, there will be repercussions and there will be ramifications, and he will see us through all of that. And these are very interesting times. But when society as a whole mocks God, and conservatives pose on Twitter in bikinis on, to talk about who is hotter, the Democrats or the Republicans. I mean, this is Clown World 3.0, and there is no political solution. And the beauty of that is when you don't have to worry about all that stuff, you have so much more time and energy to give to your wife, to give to your children, to give to all the different activities and all the different ventures and joint ventures, and all the time to give to the legacy building and the procurement of infrastructure, land, houses, whatever it may be, whatever the future holds. You have all this time and energy and focus and resources to invest in that future, and you have an inordinate amount of control over all of that. And in turn, your children can participate proactively with you in that process as you build that legacy together. I had a good friend, call me this week, young guy, 4 kids, very financially successful. And he had basically forsaken God and, relatively speaking, his family for the sake of popularity, pop culture, influence, money. And, he has a $30,000 watch and an expensive car, and they live in a nice home and have a pool and all these different things. And for the sake of his family, he sold his family out, and he sold his soul for these possessions. And he was calling me like bragging, and I called him out on the carpet about it. And he didn't break down, which was unfortunate, because the weight of the matter was incredibly heavy, and 4 children and a wife hang in the balance. And man to man, father to father, I just told him, I'm like, look, man, I don't even feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for your wife and children, and they should not have to go through this and be exposed to it. And, I prayed, we prayed together. I prayed for the Lord to crush him. And, I pray that the Lord's will be done. But I mean, this is the culture, and this is the pull of the culture, to be so enamored with the sparkling lights. And what's fascinating now is, for me and my generation, it was all about being a big shot and being wealthy and, driving a supercar and living in a mansion. And now it's about being your most authentic self, even if that's, maybe you think you're a woman, and you want to punch another woman in the face, and get to do that as a sport. And then you have women that want to punch other women in the face, and they get sad when a man that's pretending to be a woman punches them in the face. And now we have to have a political discussion about it on why men shouldn't punch women in the face.
Oh my goodness.
And
Clown world.
Yeah. I laugh because it's so
crazy,
insane that the only thing you can do is laugh, because it is that absurd and it's that obscene. And how did we get here? We stopped, we destroyed, we left the order. And just like Matt was saying, everybody gets all hunched up and bunched up. And what about Deborah? And are you saying women can't do all these things in politics? And my point is, is if the women leave their natural use and their design and what they were created to do, to go be a man and do manly things, who is doing what the women are supposed to be doing?
I think the biggest thing, the concern in those books, The Man of Steel and Velvet, and also the Fascinating Womanhood book that I have, is the biggest concern that they saw in society, being then in the late 60s, was homosexuality. And they said it would be the destruction of our culture, the Western culture, and they said the reason that both of those books point to for the cause of the burst of homosexuality back then in the late 60s, early 70s, was directly linked to the gender roles being forsaken, and people not understanding basic biblical principles of a man being a man, a woman being a woman, and those roles. You can look at nature itself and God's design, and you can see a rooster and you can see a hen, and you can see that hen is created to lay on those eggs, nurture those baby chicks, take care of them.
They both have their own roles.
Yes. And the rooster is there to protect, guard, look out, make sure that no hawks come flying down. And, even provide. I mean, he'll go find bugs and stuff for the baby chicks and bring them over and let them eat. Right. So there's an order in all of nature, in all of creation, and it's by design. And when we deviate from that, we get deviation, which is what we have now. And so it's so important to become a student of history, challenge yourself, get outside your comfort zone, and get back to these old ways of living and doing things and functioning in your natural created order.
And and when that rooster and that hen deviate and leave the designed order, chickens cease to exist.
Baby chicks would die.
Procreation stops.
If mama hen isn't doing what she's supposed to be doing, daddy can't do it. So
and I just think I mentioned about this reproductive health of Western civilization is at an all-time low, and it's shocking. And when we leave that order, the next thing you know, we have polyphenols and all these PBCs. We have all these like environmental toxins that mimic estrogen, and then we have birth control that's mimicking all of these pseudo estrogens, right?
And all the man-made food that disrupts the hormones.
And it all works together as a grand conspiracy. It almost seems like there's a prince and a power of the air that maybe oversees the Illuminati and the Bilderbears and all of the
everything that goes on in the world.
Everything. It's all works in concert. It's rather interesting. And it all comes to fruition when you exit and you reject the biblical order of creation. So I pray this helps somebody out there.
Definitely.
And we're just going to keep on doing our thing. And we're super shadow banned on the Them Tubes. And hopefully this will get more than 200 views. And if it doesn't, we don't care.
Don't care.
But we love and appreciate y'all. The website is being reworked, and it'll be back online, I think, within a week or two.
A week or two.
We're coming out with some new coffees and all that kind of cool stuff.
All types of cool stuff.
And we got lots of cool updates. We are having an IRL in-person meetup. Saturday,
this coming
September 7th at Bob Wells Nursery at Sorella Farms from 10 to 1. And I think we're doing a potluck again.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a blast last time, and we love meeting y'all. And come out. We can talk homestead. We can talk carnivore. We can talk
community,
gender roles. We can talk homeschool.
All of it.
We can talk all the great things. and that made Christianity great.
Yeah, it's a really good group of people.
Yeah,
It really
a lot of
is.
great people.
Yeah.
And it's a very diversified, eclectic bunch, and it's cool. And we all hang out and have a fun time and encourage each other. And we're looking forward to it. Anything else as we close out the program?
That's it for now. All right. Talk to y'all later.
All right, y'all. Remember, stay fearless, my friends.